What is going on, everybody, and welcome back to the Wednesday edition of the Stokastic NHL Strategy Show, sponsored by Prize Picks. I am your host, Josh Harris. What's going on, everybody? Joining me, as always, Slim Cliffy. How's your Wednesday going?
Not bad, actually. Bright, sunny day outside, which is always nice when you're in basically the middle of winter. Hasn't been too cold lately, so can't complain about that. Pretty good night of pucks last night. I missed the early portions of the early games, but I did catch the end of the Carolina game. Carolina, like I said this on Twitter, I know they lost, but that team looks like it's going to be an absolute wagon with Pacioretty back. Now they have two genuinely very good scoring lines, especially if Stastny keeps playing the way he is. I wonder if they go get another center. And I watched the Florida-Colorado game, which was not 100% nitrous because Colorado's not completely healthy, but that was a pretty fun game to watch. I ended up cashing last night, which was kind of a surprise to me because I did use Buffalo 1, but they didn't really – they had a good night. Like Alex Tuck had a couple goals. Jeff Skinner had a couple assists, but they didn't really like break the slate or anything. I think they had like 45 combined points, but Calgary 3 helped me get there. Frustrating night, though. As I was telling you in DMs on Discord, we were talking last night after the show, and I was talking about which defenseman I was going to go with my single lineups. The first pair that I was looking at was Jonas Siegenthaler and Jacob Chikrin. Those guys combined for 43 DraftKings points last night. The other pair of defensemen that I was considering was Shane Gostisbehere and Ty Smith. Shane Gostisbehere and Jake Wallman, sorry. They scored 39.8. Now, I changed my lineup a bit because I had Hayton as a one-off center plus Mangiapane and Coleman. I decided to go with Hayton as a one-off center, Mangiapane and Backlund. And Backlund was a lot more expensive, so I had to pay down less at D. I ended up going with Ty Smith and Gustav Forsling. So instead of getting 40 or more points from my defenseman, I got 14. Backlund outscored Coleman a little bit last night, but Coleman had a pretty good night. I think he had 6 shots, the shot bonus plus an assist. So they would have been basically pretty close in points last night. Maybe, Coleman would have finished with like maybe 5 less. Anyways, I cost myself about 35 points by just not going with either of the defense pairs that I had been considering, going with something completely different. You talked about a late swap you had last week that just kind of killed you. It's that, like you said before this show, it's a single entry life, man. Or single life entry, as you put it.
My wife loved that one, by the way.
Sometimes you make a swap that really works in your favor. Sometimes you make a swap that really doesn't. Last night it didn't. I still ended up cashing, which is nice, but cost myself a little bit of money. that's the way it goes. A little birdie told me that you bubbled last night and you weren't too excited about that.
Wasn't. Also, I said single life entry or something like that. My wife was so pissed. She took Avery. They went shopping. Somehow I imagine I have a few credit cards missing from my wallet. Yeah, no, I bubbled. I hate bubbling. I'd rather just finish dead last. I had Winnipeg won, or the Dubois, Connor, Ehlers line, which was pretty good. I had Hurdle and Meyer. They were okay. I had Hayton, pretty good. I had Sorokin, pretty good. Had Ty Smith, pretty good. Bubbled. Pain.
That's brutal.
Lack of sleep.
You know what? Just everything started to pile up on you all at once.
Yeah. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, like Pittsburgh too absolutely broke the slate. Tampa power play broke it as well. We had someone on Twitter tagged us. They had a Stokastic logo. Let me see if I can find it here. Here we are. Anthony, second place, I believe in the 15. I don't know what you can get 7,500 for second place. It's either the 15 or the 333. Based off ownership, I think it's the 15. Finished second for 7,500. Congrats to you. Big score, 192 there. Tampa, Pitt 2, Hayton 1 off. So that is quite the lineup there. And we have a super chat from Matt. Thank you very much. $5. Took second in the 444 on FanDuel with a single jingle last night. That's actually a nice little tune.
Yeah, I'm gonna keep that in mind.
Jingle.
The single jingle, yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for keeping this fun for me, hockey bros. Yeah, definitely a hockey bro. Bro,
yeah. No, congrats, Matt. That's anytime you can do that well on a single entry in a multi-entry format. You had a pretty good lineup. So congrats to you. Thank you for the super chat. Let's just hope we can keep it going here on this 4-game slate that looks pretty wild at first glance.
Yeah, this one is I don't know what the adjective to use for it. We'll just get into it. But before we do, 60 of you in here, smash that like button, fellas and chicas. You're not here to look at my pretty face. You're here to hit the like. It is pretty, though. I know.
I mean, I'll give
Please
you
give
that.
us a like. Give us a like and subscribe to all of our shows, DFS offers, giveaway, or once subscribe, hit that notification button to get alerts when our shows go live. Also, don't forget to sign up for the Stokastic Hall of Fame by changing your avatar on DraftKings and FanDuel. Easy enough. Go to stokastic.com/avatar, download it, make it your Avi on the daily fantasy sports sites. Place in the top 3 contest with over 5,000 contestants. Tweet the wins to @StokasticHOF on Twitter. If you don't have the tweet machine, you can email us with a screenshot and you'll win a free month of Stokastic Plus Platinum. You can only qualify once per year. So if you go on an absolute heater, you can only get 1 free month. But since you went on an absolute heater, I'm sure that money will be just a nice consolation prize. You also get a shout out in the weekly Hall of Fame segment. So look forward to that. Let's jump into this slate here. We have the Washington Capitals with a 3.4 total. Heading into Philadelphia, the Flyers have a 2.7. Darcy Kemper probable. Carter Hart is confirmed. I think this is 3 of 4 for the Flyers. They played a lot of hockey.
Yeah, they played Sunday, Monday, Wednesday.
Yeah. They played a lot of hockey recently. They shut out the Sabres. Torts probably ripped them after they got annihilated by the Leafs. Have to see which Flyers team shows up here. Looks like the Capitals are going with Ovechkin, Sheary, Backstrom, Kuznetsov, Strome, Wilson, Eller, Oshie, Milano. I have no particularly big qualms with those lines. I do like a Caps power play stack. I think the best here. I think you can full stack some lines though, but if you want to leave off like Sheary on the top line and add in Kuznetsov or add in Oshie, because Oshie is $100 cheaper than Sheary on DraftKings, so you get a full 3 guys on the power play there. I think that is the route. Nicholas Backstrom, very cheap. He is. We'll have to wait and see. At this point, he's just a name. He's had a lot of major injuries. As long as he can contribute in his spot on the power play, I think he will be just fine. I don't know what to expect from him 5-on-5 with less hips than Tyler Seguin, so I don't know. On the Flyers side, that Konechny, Farabee, Cates line looked really good against Buffalo, but Buffalo is a pretty terrible team defensively. Capitals have been pretty good defensively. They've started to get some pretty good goaltending, so I'm not sure how much interest in 1-3 I have with the Flyers.
Yeah, I should mention that the lines
it's Ovi Kuznetsov, sorry.
Yeah, the lines that we have in the lineup builder aren't the lines that they had at practice yesterday. Just waiting for an update here. The top line was Ovechkin skating with Kuznetsov and our buddy Sonny Milano from not being able to make the Flames roster to the top line for a playoff team in the Eastern Conference after being let go for nothing by Anaheim.
And Calgary. Shout out Calgary.
Yeah, brilliant decision-making across the league. I love the NHL. So Kuznetsov, Ovechkin, Milano on the top line. Backstrom on the second line with Lars Eller and TJ Oshie on his wing. And then a third line of Sheary, Strome, and Tom Wilson. It's interesting that they put these lines together on a road trip because a line of Eller, Backstrom, and Oshie would indicate to me that would be some sort of shutdown line that they might use at home against top competition. That they decide to go to this on the road, it feels a little curious, but I guess they just want to try different combinations, right? Like Backstrom and Wilson have missed half the season. They have a bunch of new players in that top 9, let's call it, namely Strome and Milano. Obviously, Connor Brown's going to come back hopefully at some point this season, so there'd be a third guy there. So maybe they just want to see what chemistry each guy has with each. Ovechkin has played pretty well with Kuznetsov offensively going back a while. Just looking at this year, they have over 200 minutes together at 5-on-5, 2.8 expected goals for, 3.3 actual goals for, basically break even by expected goal share, but scoring at a fairly higher rate than their expected goals numbers are. And they've had similar performances for the last couple years. So I think this is about the level that they're at, which is not elite, but still good. One thing that had been a problem for Ovechkin, Strome, and Sheary, because that was a line that this team, that Washington had used quite a bit this year with all their injuries. Ovechkin, Strome, and Sheary were good at generating offense, but not good at finishing off plays. Their shooting percentage was very low. I think it was around 6 to 7%, which is not good for an Ovechkin line. Like he's not a Barkov or a Kucherov that can drive like an 11 or 12% line, but 6 to 7% is pretty bad. But him and Kuznetsov have been a lot better together in that regard than Ovechkin and Strome have been. So I think it's a boost for Ovechkin at 5-on-5. And Sonny Milano, he's a good playmaking winger. Like I still don't know why Anaheim got rid of him, especially when you watch this Ducks team this year. That's running out, Ryan Strome consistently, Ryan Strome, Frank Vatrano consistently, even though they're getting buried. And we'll talk about them later in the show. But I haven't checked lately, but I know as of a week ago, Milano was leading Washington in points per minute at 5-on-5. So he had been productive in the limited minutes he's been given because, they have him, quote unquote, on the second line for most of the season, but he's still only playing 14 or 15 minutes a game because there are checking line guys like Nick Dowd or Lars Eller that will get ice time, especially at home when they're, looking to shut down the opposing top lines, and doesn't get prime power play minutes. So he still won't play a lot, but he's been productive. I think he's going to fit in well on that top line with Kuznetsov and Ovechkin. But it's also the case where he's clearly the third wheel there. And, if Connor Sheary's back on the top line by the middle of the second period, that wouldn't surprise me either. So that Washington top line is pretty good at 5-on-5. At home, the Flyers had been using that Cates line as the quote shutdown line, which is kind of interesting to me because their expected goals against in 100 minutes together this year is sitting at 3.8 per 60 minutes. But only 1.8 actual goals against, as the goaltending behind them has been over 950. Whether that can maintain itself for the second half of the season, I guess we're going to find out. But If they keep getting buried like this at 5-on-5, eventually that dam has to break, right? So I think it's a pretty good 5-on-5 matchup for Ovechkin, Kuznetsov, and Milano. Certainly don't mind just 3-man stacking them here. I think that's something that is perfectly acceptable on a 4-game slate like this. They're coming in pretty cheap. They're not coming in that highly owned either. Just looking at our top stacks tool, 10% top 2 stack probability, 8% ownership. So good leverage, or reasonable leverage, at least over on DraftKings. Not so much on FanDuel, where they're coming in a little bit higher owned because they are relatively cheap. But good leverage for those playing on DraftKings. So I do like that Washington top line. I was looking at how Oshie and Backstrom had performed historically without Ovechkin as a winger over the last few years, because obviously there's no sample this year with Backstrom having all of one game played. Over the last 3 years, 350 minutes together without Ovechkin, 2 expected goals for, 2.1 against, 2.8 actual goals for, 2.6 against. Like, it's not very good. It's pretty low pace. That goals for is fine. I think it would be even above league average over that span, but certainly not great or elite or anything like that. I also wonder about Backstrom kind of being eased in. He only played 14 minutes in their first game, or in his first game back, in a Washington uniform against Columbus. That was a 1-0 shutout win. So, and it was Columbus. Like, maybe they didn't want to, have to play him 19 minutes or whatever against the Blue Jackets. But I do wonder if we're going to see some more balanced ice time, especially when Washington's playing non-playoff teams like Columbus, like Philadelphia here tonight. And they just try to get them back into game shape, because it's going to take these guys a few weeks to kind of get their timing back, get their win back, because it's a whole different ball game playing in games as it is to skating around in practice. And without them having been super productive historically, and Lars Eller's not a great offensive driver. I think his closest comparable might be somebody like Mark Stahl. Geez, imagine being Mark Stahl. Actually, it wouldn't be bad to be Mark Stahl. Long NHL career. I know he's had a couple gruesome injuries, but decent money. I wonder if Lars Eller's Jordan Stahl-esque performance is going to help that line very much. I think it'll help him a lot defensively, certainly, but offensively, I'm not that sure. I don't think Washington 2 is a line I would go to. I think they might end up being a reasonably popular filler as well, because you do get Backstrom and Oshie on that top power play unit with Ovechkin. So, if you want to go and use Backstrom and Oshie, I think it's $8K on DraftKings for that 2-man. You get them both on the top power play unit, and then you can go and you can stack your Torontos or your Edmontons or what have you. So I don't wonder if they come in as one of those really popular fillers here tonight. So I don't think I'll be going to Washington 2. Washington 3 is kind of interesting for me. Strome and Sheary have generally played well together, whether it's with Ovechkin or with another winger. I wonder about their ice time. And it's not necessarily like a great matchup. Like, other than the Flyers top line, that Cates Konechny line, the other lines have been playing pretty well. That JVR line for the Flyers, 2.8 expected goals for, 2.6 against, all playing around 50.5 to 60.5 minutes of late. Owen Tippett has 25 shots in his last 10 games. Like, they've been performing well at both ends of the ice. That Flyers third line, even the Kevin Hayes, Wade Allison line. Believe it or not, old Wade Allison is leading Flyers regular forwards in expected goals impacts this season. Him and Hayes have been playing well on that third line together. 3.1 expected goals for, 3.6 actual goals for. Hayes has 14 shots in his last 5 games. So I think it's a tremendous 5-on-5 matchup for Washington's top line. I'm just not sure it's a very good matchup for the second and third lines. And I wonder if they're not popular fillers for the more expensive options here. So if I'm playing Washington, it's top line, maybe a power play stack. That's it. On the Philly side, I do think that JVR line is probably going to go into Backstrom a fair bit, and that's not really a great matchup. I probably want to match up against the third line a little bit more, that Sherry Strome line. So I don't even like, I think one of the third lines that's playable on the slate here tonight is that Philly third line, Hayes, Lawton, and Allison. Like I said, Hayes has 14 shots in his last 5 games, has generally been pretty productive this season, is on the top power play unit. Scott Lawton is almost always in the top 3 amongst their forwards in ice time, game in and game out, because he plays in a variety of situations for them. And like I said, Wade Allison has the best impacts, expected goals impacts amongst this team's forwards this season. I think that could be a good third line to use here tonight if you want to get to a super expensive Toronto stack or Edmonton stack or what have you. So I don't mind going to Hayes, Lawton, and Allison here. If you just want to one-off Kevin Hayes, I think that's just fine because of his power play usage. If you want just 2-man and go Lawton and Hayes or Allison and Hayes or something like that, I think that's perfectly fine. But it's Philly 3 that I really do like as a cheap option in this matchup. But I'm going to be honest, we're not showing a lot of ownership on any of the Flyers lines. I know it's not a huge total. Washington penalty kill has kind of been slipping over the last month, where it had been pretty good earlier. I think there's some merit to at least one-offing some of the power play guys here in this matchup. So if you wanted, just one-off Hayes or one-off Travis Konechny or something like that, I think that's playable. But I do think that Philly third line, I think they'll come up as it depends where you're looking, but I'll just say the Hayes line. I think the Hayes line is the line that I would be looking at on the Flyers side, and obviously the Washington top line on their side.
That's all-star Kevin Hayes, by the way, not all-star Travis Konechny. No idea what. Never mind. But yeah, you said just you can't wait to see my reactions to some of these. Like, I actually don't mind that Hayes line, to be honest with you.
This isn't the third line that I was mentioning to you before the show. We're going to get to a dandy later.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm just like, of all of them, like, all the Flyers lines are third lines. So
yeah, fair enough.
Yeah, don't mind the Hayes lines here. I also, now that I know the correct Washington lines, big fan of Sonny Milano up on the top line. I think he's a chameleon. He can fit in fine up there. You look at his numbers last year, like you look at Zegras' numbers last year with and without Milano, like Zegras' numbers were drastically improved with Milano on his wing. I think Milano can fit in with Kuznetsov and Ovechkin very well tonight going forward. He'll fit a role like him up there. So yeah, Washington 1. Flyer stuff is fine. Don't know if I'm going to get there 1 to 3, but obviously I haven't built my lineups yet. Let's move on to the next one. Oh my God. Nashville Predators with a 2.6 total heading into Toronto. The Maple Leafs have a 3.3 total. Austin Matthews out tonight, leaving the top line with William Nylander, Michael Bunting, and Pierre Engvall. Sure. Like, Nylander has played center this year. He's played some center last year. He came up as a center, I believe.
Yeah.
If there's ever a matchup to play center, it's probably this one. Like, the Predators just don't offer much resistance. We wanted to see Engvall up in the top 6, just not like this. Interestingly enough, I'm curious to see a new ownership run with Matthews out. Maybe we have it. I don't have the top stacks up, because if I have too many tabs up, my computer's just like, yeah, bye-bye. Engvall's 2,300, Bunting's 5,300. They're 15-6 to full stack. I don't know. Like, I have concerns about the power play without Matthews. This seemed like, and on top of that, Saros has been out of his mind the past week. Like, in Saros, like, I have no data to back this up, but he is one of the more streakier goalies in the NHL. Like, when he's hot, he is white hot. And when he's cold, everything gets in. And I've always said, because he's a shorter goalie, he's not like 6'8". He's a little bit shorter. So when his positioning's a little off, things go haywire a little bit there. I'm kind of in a conundrum here what to do with the Leafs, because you have Edmonton with a massive total. You have the Capitals with a pretty decent total in a really good power play spot. You have the late night Kings with a massive total. You know what I mean? So, like, I feel like without Matthews, I think the Leafs get overlooked a little bit here. The top line, anyway. I think that's going to push more ownership to Tavares Marner. I'm not sure I want to play them.
Yeah, that's a pretty good point about the ownership, because the top stacks run that we have right now is still was still from before Matthews was announced out. At that point, the Tavares Marner Yarncroc line was at 14% ownership. I could see that being like 20%. You know what I mean? With Matthews out of the lineup, so it's probably going to be one of the more popular mid-price lines here on this slate. But it's the top line that's kind of interesting to me with Pierre Engvall there. Over the last couple seasons, there has been times where Nylander's been moved down to the third line. So him and Engvall actually do have a reasonable sample together. Over the last 2 years, Nylander and Engvall have played 175 minutes together at 5-on-5. That works out to, I don't know, maybe about 15 games, depending on how much ice time they play. But 2.6 expected goals for, 2.4 against, 3.3 actual goals for, 3.1 against. That's pretty reasonable goal scoring. Obviously, it's not old Toronto 1. They're, sometimes around 5 per 60 minutes, not around 3. But anything over 3 is still good. I mean, we just talked about the Kuznetsov, Ovechkin, Washington top line that's been at about 3.3 for the last few years. That's what Nylander and Engvall, that's the same rate as Nylander and Engvall over the last couple seasons. So it's interesting that Engvall is up there, and Bunting is going to replace Matthews on the top power play unit. And you're right. Like, I think without Matthews there, it takes a big sting out of the power play. It's not just his goal scoring, right? But it's also just the threat of his goal scoring. Like, he's one of those people you have to keep an eye on when he's on the ice. And it's his playmaking. It's his ability to play in tight spaces and make, close quarter passes and stuff like that. Like, there's a lot more value to Matthews on the power play than just simply his shooting. And his shooting is, absolutely unbelievably unreal. So I do wonder how that power play is going to work out. But I think Nylander, Engvall, and Bunting could be a pretty good line together at 5-on-5. And I wonder if Engvall comes in at, I don't want to say low ownership, because I think Engvall is skating, quote, on the top line at a low price on a 4-game slate is going to attract ownership regardless. But I wonder if we don't end up in one of those situations where, let's say Nylander comes in at like 18% and Bunting is at like 16%, and then, Engvall's at like 9 or 8 or something like that, right? Now, him being so cheap might throw that a little bit out of whack, and maybe he does end up in the mid to high double digits or something like that. So we'll see what happens. But I want to reiterate, like, Pierre Engvall is not a bad hockey player. It's just that he might be the best forward Toronto has outside their big four. Like, maybe him or Michael Bunting would be like 1A, 1B for me. And he can carry a third line, which is something that Toronto has desperately needed for a few years now, which is why he's so often on the third line. But over the last 2 seasons, outside of Matthews, Marner, and Bunting, effectively their top line over the last 2 years, Engvall has the highest expected goals impact amongst all their forwards, like higher than Nylander, higher than Tavares, higher than Yarncroc, higher than all those guys. Like, I think Engvall's a pretty good player, and I think people are going to find out tonight just how good he is, because this is not a tough matchup with Nashville down. We were posting in our Discord, like, over the last few weeks, the only team in the league giving up more expected goals per minute than Anaheim is Nashville.
Oh, and Anaheim.
Yeah, sorry, I said that backwards. The only team giving up more expected goals than Nashville is Anaheim. Nashville's 31st by expected goals against in the NHL over the last 4 weeks. As you mentioned, UC Saros has just been on an unbelievable heater, and he has really saved any semblance of playoff hope that this team has. But their 5-on-5 lines are just not good. That's just the way it is. Like, Mark Jankowski is playing with Matt Duchene and doing a little bit of digging. It seems like top teams are considering them the top line for shutdown purposes. They're carrying a 47% shot share. That's just bad. The Nashville second line with Forsberg and Sissons, 48% shot share, over 130 shot attempts for and against per 60 minutes with them on the ice. Like Forsberg and Sissons just play at a very, very high pace, which makes that Toronto 2, what I think will be the Toronto 2 matchup, pretty interesting because Tavares, Marner, and Yarncroc are pretty low event. I wonder how that mixes. And then you get to Nashville 3, which I think might be their top line at this point, at least by performance, of Glass, Johansson, and Niederreiter. 3.3 expected goals for, 2.9 expected goals against. Another very high event line. So the Nashville lines are either bad, high event, or both. And I think that plays pretty well to Toronto's strengths here. So if you want to avoid the Toronto power play because you're afraid of the Matthews impact, I think that's fine. But I think both the top even strength lines are in play for Toronto here. I would probably go to the top line, honestly, and go to Bunting, Nylander, and Engvall over the Tavares line, because the Tavares line 2.0 expected goals for, 4.2 actual goals because they're shooting over 17%. Like they're just running pure by shooting percentage. They can't maintain anywhere close to that. Once that crashes, they're obviously going to be scoring a lot less. I just don't see them creating enough offense game in and game out to really rely on them in DFS. Obviously, it's a 4-game slate, and if you're playing 100 lineups, you're going to have some Toronto 2 somewhere. I'm just thinking if you're playing 1, 3, 5 lineups, something like that, I would probably rather just go to the Toronto top line and play all of Bunting, Nylander, Engvall. If you want to add in Tavares and make it a power play-ish stack or something like that, I think you can do it, but I think it's the Toronto top line that I like the best. And I don't think the matchup matters. Like I think they go out against the Duchesne line, but it honestly doesn't matter which line they play against. It's either, like I said, it's either high event, bad, or both. Already covered Toronto 2. Like I said, if you want to play them, fine. I just don't think they're generating enough consistently to be reliable. Toronto 3 had been playing pretty well. Without Engvall there, I don't know how good they're going to be because, like I said, he's been one of the top expected goals impacts over the last 2 seasons, and he's the top expected goals impact amongst all their forwards so far this season. So you take him out and you leave him with, Kerfoot and Kampf and whomever. I don't think that's going to be very good. So that might be a matchup that favors the Nashville side, that Glass line. So if I'm going to play anything from the Nashville side, it is Niederreiter, Granlund, and Glass. I can't believe I might consider a Michael Granlund line. But this is what Nashville is doing to me. This is what they're making me do this.
John Wines, he can't keep getting away with this.
Yeah. They don't play a ton, but Nashville has been spreading around the ice time amongst all its forwards, and they're still playing 14 or 15 minutes with Niederreiter at 16 plus. We talked the other day about Cody Glass's scoring chance contributions. Very, very strong this season. Him and Matt Duchesne leading the team in that regard. Third place to Eeli Tolvanen, who's now in Seattle. Good job, Predators. So he is playing well. Niederreiter's still a good two-way winger. They can carry Johansson. I think it's Nashville 3 that's in the best matchup here. So with them being perfectly correlated on the power play, I call them Nashville 3, but they might actually be the top line at this point. It is the Johansson, Granlund, Glass line that I like the best from the Nashville side. Like I said, it's Toronto 1 for me here. I think that Engvall line is going to be pretty good, and it's not a tough matchup. The only problem comes in goal facing UC Saros with the way that he's playing right now.
Yeah, you see David Poley's comments about Eeli Tolvanen. It just reminds me of, I think I've made a really big mistake. Like he's fit in perfectly with Seattle. So imagine, he was like, oh yeah, we tried him everywhere. Yeah, playing him 7 minutes a night on the fourth line really gave him a shot.
It's just one of those frustrating things. Like I know teams have their own data and stuff like that, but there are always players that it's like, why would you ever give up on this guy? And like I was mentioning to you in one of our group chats, Nashville traded away Kevin Fiala for Michael Granlund and then saw what Kevin Fiala would go on to do for Minnesota and now in Los Angeles. Like, say what you want about his season this year. He's on pace for 85 points. Like, And what they did to Washington like a decade ago when they traded away Martin Erat, got Philip Forsberg, and got an all-star top-line winger for Martin Erat. And then they go ahead and give away Tolvanen. It just seems really, really weird considering the history of this franchise. Good for Seattle, though. Now they have a complete third line, and they have 3 scoring lines, and they're on their way they're marching their way to the playoffs, while Nashville is scrapping and fighting, hoping they can get into a wild card spot. It is just bananas. Like I said, I love the NHL.
Yeah, I mean, David Poley's been smoking that peyote on Mount Vesuvius with Hansel and Zoolander, it seems like. Some really wild moves there, but, it is, like we said, the NHL. Tyler Seguin doesn't fit in our culture. Let's trade him to Dallas. We are, as we mentioned off the top, we are sponsored by Prize Picks. If you click the link in the description below, the most important part, you'll get 1 free month Stokastic Plus Platinum and up to $100 deposit match bonus when you sign up and make a deposit with Prize Picks. It is, if you don't know what Prize Picks is, it is a daily prop-based contest. You're not dealing with 150 maxers like Jake, who's always taking your money. You don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about optimizers like me. We're figuring out how to copy and paste. I don't have to worry about that. And I can, we can do 5-player lineups, and that can net you up to 10x your entry fee. You can use your knowledge of multiple sports with cross sports entries. You can do hockey with NBA. We got MMA coming up this weekend. You can do it with that. So yeah, I have a prize pick for you. We just mentioned him, Kevin Fiala. His prop on Prize Picks is over 3 shots on goal. I like the over there. Kevin Fiala has been playing very well. Let's move on to the next one. Oh, yeah. Edmonton Oilers with a 3.9 total heading into Anaheim. Los Patos, the Ducks, have a 2.6 total. Cac Jamble is confirmed. John Gibson is probable. Zegras was at practice this morning. He missed practice yesterday because of the sniffles. He's back.
We all get them.
Yeah, he's back. Like, we just mentioned that the only team giving up more expected goals than the Predators is the Ducks. The Ducks, like the McTavish, Henrique, Terry line is just playing street hockey. I mean, like, I don't know what you want me to say about the Oilers. Like, I don't know what to say other than just play the power play guys and go about your day. Like, I see Ryan McLeod at 26.6% projected ownership, and I just don't want to do it. I'd rather just drop down to Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and add him into that stack at 6.6%. Add in McDavid. Here's a 4-man power play stack. Go about your day. Now, on the flip side, Jack Campbell's in net, and he has not been great this season either. So I have interest on both sides of this game. If I was a betting man, which I apparently am, I would be betting the over on this game. What are you seeing?
What am I seeing in this game? I'm seeing 2 teams that both might not be making the playoffs this year, and one of them probably should. What I will say first off is at least I haven't seen any Edmonton lines so far today. They are on the road sometimes, especially, they're in Los Angeles. Sometimes practices can come late. I haven't seen anything yet to this point, and I don't think it'll surprise you, but Edmonton went full line blender in the third period against the Kings the other night. They started with Kostin, Yamamoto, and McDavid on the top line. And then I think by the end of the game, McDavid was playing a little bit with Dylan Holloway, if I'm not mistaken, which, that's certainly something. Draisaitl had been playing on the second line with it's Hyman right now. Yeah, Zach Hyman and McLeod, like you like to say. He had been playing with Hyman and McLeod for the first couple periods. Third period rolls around. All of a sudden, he's playing with Yamamoto and Holloway for one shift. A couple shifts later, he's got McLeod back, but now he's got Jesse Puljujärvi. Shift later, he's got McDavid with him up front. So, this is what Edmonton does. We don't know exactly what their lineups are going to be. I'm assuming at the least McDavid and Yamamoto stay on the top line together because I think Kostin played like 8 minutes last game. That's been kind of a problem for him. It's been like 8, 11, 15, 8, 11. What do you do with that? McDavid and Yamamoto have a reasonable sample together this year. They're up over 100 minutes. Things aren't looking good. 2.4 expected goals for, 2.8 expected goals against at 5-on-5, 1.8 goals for and goals against per 60 minutes. Yamamoto's typically a decent percentage shooter. Like his career was over 15% heading into the season. He's at about 10% this year. So maybe there's a little bit of bad luck going on, but McDavid's numbers have really, really suffered without Leon Draisaitl next to him this year. And I think that's clearly a function of the lack of depth on this team, right? Like if he's not playing with Draisaitl, he has Hyman and then shrug, right? Like, and if he doesn't have Hyman and Draisaitl, it's, well, here's, Klim Kostin and Dylan Holloway. You know what I mean? So without Draisaitl next to him at 5-on-5, the Oilers are scoring 2.5 goals per 60 minutes with McDavid on the ice. That's pathetic. It's just, there's just no other way to say it. It is absolutely pathetic. The scoring that Edmonton's putting together 5-on-5 with McDavid on the ice without Draisaitl. It's those two players, or it's nothing. Like those guys go off. I should say that. I think there was one game a couple weeks ago, maybe last week, where Janmark had like a 3-point night or something like that. Like, congrats to them. That'll happen maybe once or twice a season. But if McDavid and Draisaitl don't get there, this team's probably in trouble. But like you mentioned, it's just a phenomenal matchup going into Anaheim. The Anaheim top line, as it's currently constructed, doesn't have a huge sample, only 45 minutes, 69 shot attempts against per 60 minutes, just awful. 42% of the shot share. I think at this point, that's about what we're expecting for any line that's not Zegras, Terry, and Henrique. They all played quite a bit in the last game, 19 to 22 minutes. I think that's probably what you'll see again here today. Here's a little bit of a problem I'm running into is that, you and I have talked about how good Troy Terry is, and I think he is a really, really good player. Right now, I wonder about I hate speculating about this because you don't know what's going on in a player's head or what's going on in a hockey dressing room, but I kind of wonder about his motivation. Like, this team sucks, and unless they get Connor Bedard in the draft, or maybe Fantilli if he really, turns into a superstar, is this team going to be any good in the next 2 or 3 years? It's a stretch. Troy Terry's an RFA this season. I think he's a year away from UFA. I don't wonder if he just wants out. Now, that's just me speculating, but I look at his performance. It has typically been pretty strong, fairly consistently, at least shots-wise, over the last couple seasons. But Troy Terry, has gone 16 games since he's had a DraftKings shot bonus, which just seems unfathomable for a guy that usually likes to shoot so much. In those 16 games, he has 7 points, 1 goal, 34 shots. Like, he's just a shade over 2 shots per game over his last 16. Like, yeah, this team is very, very bad, but he should be performing a little bit better than this over any sample, especially 20% of the season. Like I said, I wonder if he's 100% motivated to give it his all, or if he just wants to get the hell out of Anaheim. And you can't blame him if he wants to, certainly. So I look at, it is a pretty good matchup against Edmonton. Like I said, that top line it's nothing. Even with Connor McDavid there, it's nothing. Terry, Henrique, and McTavish are going to see that line. They're going to see all the minutes on the power play. They are perfectly correlated on the power play. Edmonton takes a ton of penalties. They're at 3.7 times shorthanded per game this season. Third in the league behind Arizona and Florida. With Zegras back, the Anaheim has their full complement of the top power play. The power play for Anaheim has actually been good this year. It's been maybe the lone bright spot outside of the goaltending for them. So I think Anaheim 1 is perfectly fine, but I think even on both sides of this game, I think it's some sort of power play stacking that I would lean to. Both teams take a ton of penalties. Edmonton has a super elite power play. Anaheim's is good. I think it's the power play guys. I don't think this is the game where I would dive down and, say go play Sam Carrick and Jakob Silfverberg in a 2-man, or, go play go one-off Warren Fogle or something like that. Like, this is not the game where I'm doing that. This is the game where I'm especially focusing on the power play guys, or moving along. Even the third line's numbers, American RNH without the top centers, they've just been getting caved into. So there's just nothing in the depth for me. This is all about the power play guys on both sides, or you just don't play them.
Yeah, if I'm the Edmonton coach, I'm looking at this matchup, and if I put Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and Zach Hyman together and put them out on the ice for 23 to 25 minutes, who's going to stop them? No one. Just put them together. They'll score 17 goals.
You mean Max Comtois and Sam Carrick won't stop them?
Yeah.
That sounds like slander, buddy.
Sue me, Anaheim. But put them together. Stop with these coaches throughout the year. Edmonton made the playoffs, stacking their top line. Go out and get a depth piece when you're in the trade deadline. Put your top line together. No one can stop them. They were unstoppable when they were together earlier this season. Now these coaches get the jack in the box. They just want to mess up their lineup for whatever reason and just put them back together. Oh God. Anyway, I feel better now. We can get you a NHL 5-day risk-free trial, and they get you full access to everything Stokastic has to offer. Make sure to click the link in the description below. You'll get projections, ownership, top stacks, lineup builder. There's projections. We love the projections. No one has better projections. Simply the best projections.
We're just projecting and projecting over here.
Yeah. There's top stacks. Shows you leverage, ownership, or projected ownership. There is the lineup builder with everything that we have to offer. And while we have the lineup builder up as part of Let's Build the Lineup, we'll build the lineup together so you know what you're getting into if you are clicking the link in the description and joining the 5-day free trial. You also get access to the Discord, which is very informational and fun. Let's build that lineup, and we can use players in the last game if you want. Because you like Toronto 1, they're 3 wings. Can you fit them in with any sort of double Edmonton? Probably not, but
well, we could try it. I don't think so with their prices, but we'll see. So there's your 3 wings: Engvall, Nylander, and Bunting, McDavid, and Draisaitl. Who's the cheap goalie? We could put Reimer in net. Yeah, you can fit it. And then just, jam one of those super bad wingers like Costin or Yamamoto or whatever.
How much salary we got?
Well, if we put Reimer in, $3,300 per for 2 defensemen and a utility.
Sonny!
It's one-off Sonny Milano.
Ooh, I almost dropped the F-bomb, but yeah.
All right, we can do that. So we'll put Sonny Milano. We got $3,400 for each defenseman on average.
How much is the Gus?
Oh, he's way up here now at this point. Yeah, he's $5,100.
Oof.
Yeah, that's a bit too much. There's nobody really.
We can always put in our boy Martin F.
He's up to $3,000 though.
Oh, he is. See, I don't like looking at these soulless creatures who play on the blue line until I'm at the end of my lineup.
We do have Matt Roy, $3,300. I think that's reasonable for him in a huge total at home.
Let's see here.
We could pair somebody like Mario Ferraro with Reimer for correlation.
Yeah, I always like having a shot blocker with my goalie.
All right, let's do that. Let's put in Ferraro. So we can put in a $3,900 defenseman.
Or we could use Alexandre Carrier.
Let's just leave Ferraro. We'll leave the correlation.
We have 3,900.
Yeah, we can put in Bouchard.
Yeah, I actually like him when he actually gets minutes.
Yeah. So
It's kind of like a 4-2-2, but nothing's off limits here on a 4-game slate.
yeah, so we'll put in Bouchard. So that's how you use the lineup builder. When projections are up and ready to go, you'll see a projected score and all that. So it's a pretty simple tool to see what you can do and what you can do and what you can't do. Obviously, that's our sample lineup: triple wing, Toronto 1 with McDavid, Draisaitl, double center, Sonny Milano as a one-off, Reimer paired with Mario Ferraro on the blue line, and then Evan Bouchard to go with the Edmonton guys. Not a terrible lineup, actually. I kind of like that Toronto's triple wing top line.
Yeah. I'm actually surprised that fits, to be honest with
Yeah.
you. On FanDuel, that's probably like 8,000 over the cap. But
yeah, and now that I see that, I wonder how many people are going to do that Toronto top line plus McDavid, Draisaitl double center.
The 124 people watching for sure.
Yeah, it's an option for them. But yeah, it's just such a quick and easy tool to make your lineups. I use it every day, so certainly helps if you're not one of those people slamming Fantasy Cruncher for 150.
Yeah, thanks, Fantasy Cruncher. No, but this is how I get through the show. It has everything listed. I can reference stats straight from it, so I don't have to, switch browsers and all that. It is a very, very useful tool. Let's get to the last game of the night. We have the San Jose Sharks with a 2.7 total heading into Los Angeles. The Kings have a 3.7. James Reimer is confirmed. John Quick is in the lineup builder. Maybe he's probable. I didn't see anything on the Kings. Maybe they skated while we were on the air. Byfield he got hurt in the game. He came back, assuming he's in with Kopitar and Kempe, and they keep the lines the same. This is an interesting one because you look at the projected ownership and Danault of Iafallo Arvidsson getting absolutely steamed right now. They're above 30. Like their ownership is higher than the projection. I don't think I've ever seen that before. I don't know if that's actually going to happen. Like maybe it is because the Sharks are abomination defensively. But if that ownership is correct, like I'd rather just go back to Fiala, Gabe Vilardi, Blake Lizotte. Like, yeah, they're getting double digits, but it's not like 30%. You could even go back to Kopitar Kempe here. I think Iafallo Arvidsson Danault going to see a lion's share of the Hurdle-Meyer line. That Danault line has been very, very good defensively. So I like back-to-back on the road for the Sharks. Don't have a massive amount of interest in that Hurdle-Meyer line. The only thing drawing me to them is their ownership. And if Quick is in net, he has been very bad this season. So that would be another thing. But we'll see. This is a Kings game for me.
Yeah, we do have to say that San Jose top line, at least right now, is showing a lot of leverage, obviously. 17.5% top two stack, third highest on the slate. Only 7.5% ownership, giving them good leverage. The tough part here is going into Los Angeles. In years gone by, it was a brutal trip to go into Los Angeles because you'd be facing Anze Kopitar and Drew Doughty. Now, obviously, those guys, they're in the tail ends of their careers, but that Kings second line, even with Alex Iafallo there, has been just lights out defensively this year. With Iafallo next to Danault, they're at 2 expected goals against per 60 minutes, 0.8 actual goals against because a lot of their minutes have come lately with Phoenix Copley in net. I can't believe I said that.
Weird story.
Yeah. And they had similar numbers with Trevor Moore there. Like it's a really, really brutal matchup for San Jose. San Jose's top line at 5-on-5. So yes, there's very good leverage. Especially if Jonathan Quick's in net, you're right. There is reason to play them. It's just if they get there, it's probably going to have to be on the power play. And if they get there on the power play, then all of a sudden you're bringing Logan Couture in and you're bringing Alexander Barabanov in, and then you have to consider Erik Karlsson. It's not just Hurdle and Myers. So I have absolutely zero problem playing San Jose because of the leverage. I just think if San Jose gets there tonight, it's probably going to have to be on the power play, and in that situation, I'd probably just rather go to the Couture line, who's also in a better 5-on-5 matchup. They haven't been They haven't been playing particularly well defensively, so that's what makes it a good matchup for that Kopitar line. And they aren't coming in with much ownership. And they are playing well. Like, they're up to 55 minutes with Quentin Byfield next to them. 2.5 expected goals for, 1.9 against. Not scoring a ton, but you'd never really expect that line to score a lot at 5-on-5. The Sharks' penalty kill has been starting to let them down. At least their goaltending has. Their shots metrics still remain pretty strong in the PK, but it's the goaltending that's really been an issue for them. So it's not a bad matchup for Kings 1. So I don't mind playing them, where we actually have them as the lowest owned line of the three Los Angeles lines here tonight, which seems kind of unfathomable because they're all similarly priced. But, here we are. If you want to leave, Byfield off and then add like Fiala or something to make it a power play stack, I think that's fine. But I don't mind Kings 1 here. Kings 2, I think, is coming in with way too much ownership. So I agree with you. It would be Velarde, Lizotte, and Fiala I would go to if I was going to use either the second or the third lines. Here's the wrinkle that I was alluding to in our Discord a little bit earlier today. Nick Bonino and Nico Sturm have been playing very well together on the third line for the Sharks. They're up to 165 minutes. Oh, yeah, here we go. Nico Sturm, baby. 2.8 expected goals for, 2.9 actual goals for in their sample together. Those are pretty good offensive numbers, especially for a third line. Like, they're good offensive numbers regardless. They're really good for a third line. They're all playing about 15 minutes. Sturm has 23 shots in his last 10 games, so he's getting involved offensively. They're probably going to see a fair bit of that Kings third line, and the Kings third line has been pretty bad defensively. 2.3 expected goals for, 3 expected goals against, 3.3 actual goals against. Like, I think that Sturm Bonino line, or at least the Sturm Bonino 2-man, is one of the depth options that I'm considering here tonight if I want to pay up for a super expensive Edmonton or something like that. Other than that, I think you probably have to go to the power play guys because it's a reasonable power play spot for them. The Kings do take a fair amount of penalties. PK's been getting a little bit better, but I'd say no better than average. So it's not a bad power play spot for San Jose, but don't mind the power play guys, but I think Sturm are going to, make a decent little 2-man if you need a bunch of salary savings. On the Kings side, it'd be Kings 1 or Kings 3 for me. I think ownership is going to get me towards Los Angeles 1, but I think there are 2 playable lines on that side.
We got a House Essimont tout. We love it. First of his name. Holds that fort down strong.
Yeah, absolutely.
Love to see it. I thought we were going to get like Jonah Gadjevich, and I would have like fallen off my chair. But
no, I'm not going to go that deep. Not going to go that deep.
But yeah, this is a spicy little 4-gamer, huh?
Yeah, I like
it. Let's talk these gremlins on the blue line. I guess, yeah, Fairbury, I guess he's still fine at 3K. I probably just play Eric Gustafsson there. He's not getting too much ownership. 5,100 Eric Gustafsson feels bad to click in, but on that top power play in this power play matchup, pretty good. Let's see here. Always Roman Yossi's in play. Again, he's a pretty hefty spend up option here. And the team in front of him is pretty bad, but if they're going to score a couple goals, chances are he's going to be involved. Morgan Rielly back on that top power play at 4,800 is interesting. I don't mind him either. The punt guys on the Leafs are just ugh. Same with the Oilers. I think Nurse is fine. I think Bouchard for his price, if he gets 16 minutes, is fine. Tyson Barrie if you want. Cam Fowler for the power play. The punt guy's not too great there. Again, I'm looking for a punt here. It would probably be Mario Ferraro, or even Sean Walker. He doesn't get a ton of minutes, but he's 2,600. Matt Roy is all right at 3,300. Not the best punt options here. What do you liking?
Yeah, I don't mind Justin Hall at 3K on Toronto. Yeah, it's Toronto depth, but it's a pretty good total for them. He does get reasonable minutes. For the cheap guys, I'll add Kulikov from Anaheim. He probably should play around 20 minutes. He does a lot of penalty killing. It's Edmonton. He's probably going to have to block a lot of shots, I imagine. Don't mind Matt Roy either. He's been priced down for Los Angeles. Not playing a ton of minutes, 17, 18, but I think that's fine for such a high total at home. Other than the guys you mentioned for higher priced options, the one I'll add is Travis Sanheim. I said like a few weeks ago, I don't think there's a difference in DFS anymore between him and Ivan Provorov, and he's still cheaper than Ivan Provorov. So I don't mind Sanheim here tonight in that kind of mid 4-ish price range if you have that salary left.
That's a question. Do you like McDonough on FanDuel? He's 4K on FanDuel. Yeah, I don't mind that price. Alex Carrier is 3,800 on FanDuel, but there's no block bonus. So yeah, I'd probably go to McDonough there at 4K. And Carrier on DraftKings 2,700. I didn't mention him, but yeah, he's always in play. Let's talk goalies here. Who are you liking in net?
Saros, obviously, especially given the injury news for Austin Matthews. Carter Hart. Washington has been shooting a lot more at 5-on-5. Carter Hart's reasonably priced at home. Don't mind him. I was going to use Phoenix Copley. I'm not going to use Jonathan Quick. I guess if you want to like pay way down for a guy that's not going to carry much ownership, it'd be James Reimer from the Sharks.
Yeah, Reimer's an interesting pivot off Saros. I think Saros is going to be pretty chalky. But again, like goalie ownership is kind of a moot point. It just matters who scores the most. If you have a lean on any of those guys, play him. Like, I don't even know what the spend up option would be. Like, I don't want to play Matt Murray. I guess it would be Darcy Kemper if it is him, or, Charlie Lindgren. Like, Matt Murray, like, the Nashville lineup's so bad, but, like, I just have no confidence in 8,100 Matt Murray or 8,200 Jack Campbell or 8,000 Quick. So, you know what I mean? Like, it'd probably be Kemper as the spend up option. Who are you liking for your hat trick pick?
Let's hope the Leafs lose tonight. We're going with Philly Forsberg.
Nice. I kind of gave myself away with the spice here. I'm going Sonny Milano.
Oh, that would be something.
Yeah. Coming up at 5 o'clock, we have the NBA Deeper Dive with Josh and Adam and NBA Live. Before lock at 6 p.m. with Greg and Eric. So if you're looking for NBA, come back at 5 o'clock. Thank you for joining us. Smash that like button on the way out. Remember to click the link in the description, get that 5-day free trial. We'll see you in Discord. Say hello. If you sign up, come in, say hello. We'll everyone will greet you warmly. It's a nice little family community in there. And good luck tonight.
Good luck, everyone.